Development throughout the town of Oakville is governed by our zoning bylaws formulated for planning documents such as the Regional Official Plan, the Livable Oakville Plan, and here in Bronte, the Bronte Village Growth Review. But overall planning starts at the provincial level. And with the provincial elections less than 3 weeks away, we have invited all 5 MPP candidates for our riding to Bronte. We want to hear their opinions regarding housing, transparency in the legislative process, and their thoughts on our community. Hello, my name is Terry Shea, and I'm on the board of the BVRA. And I have the pleasure of speaking to those 4 candidates who have agreed to be interviewed. I'm now joined by Alison Gohel. Welcome to Bronte, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, great. So let's start with transparency in the legislative process. So with all planning direction originating from the province, how would you champion grassroots engagement or more transparency in the legislative process for residents associations like us and just residents in general?
So this is a great question. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for having me. I've been able to knock on a lot of doors in Bronte over the past few months, and I've really gotten to get to know some of the issues surrounding the community. I live not too far from here, but I absolutely love Bronte. It's a beautiful lakefront, so I'm really pleased to be here today. Transparency is obviously a really big issue, and it stems from, I think, the leadership within our parties and within government. We've seen right now, unfortunately, that the Ford government doesn't have very much transparency, starting with the mandate letters, that they have not, unfortunately, released to the public, which is, I think, really not a good scenario to be in when you're in government. For us, especially within the planning process, I'm looking forward to creating more dialogue with residents associations, with community groups, with stakeholders, even with the development community to make sure that we get the planning process right. I think more dialogue is always a great thing. And I also think, our party has put out a platform that has a really great plan around the planning process, but also making sure, I know a lot of issues that have been happening in the community are around MZOs. And those we're actually saying that we will remove. We want to create a more public process so that community groups and residents associations can be part of those conversations, so that the consultation process is open and transparent, because it does affect your community directly.
Great, thank you. So speaking of that process, how do you ensure that the voices of those that are sometimes underrepresented, like the seniors and specifically elderly, how do you ensure that their voices are heard in this process?
Well, first of all, that's what I've been doing pretty much day in, day out from starting a few months ago. I like to get out and speak to the community. I like to knock on doors. I like to make sure that we're giving, the voices back to the people, because that's really what politics should be about. I think hopefully if I'm lucky enough to get elected at Queen's Park, I will continue that. I will hopefully have an office where people will be free to come in, to call. We will always respond to questions. We will always respond and involve the community groups as well in all of the processes to make sure that then their voices are heard.
So let's now turn specifically to housing. How do you balance the need for new development, including affordable housing, and still protect our stable neighborhoods?
So that's a great question, and it's something that I've been hearing a lot about at the doors when I'm talking to people. People really want to make sure that we do have affordable housing, especially for older people whose kids are now looking to buy their first homes, and they can't get into the market anymore. They've been priced out. So we have this phenomenon in Ontario now that's called drive till you qualify, which means younger families are going to have to drive, to a lot further places, an hour and 2-hour drives from where really they were brought up and born and where their family is. So we want to make sure that we're building more. We're focusing on supply. We're going to build 1.5 million homes over the next 2 years. We've also heard from many municipalities throughout the GTA that there's developers and speculators that are sitting on so much potential land, potential development that hasn't been built yet. So we want to make sure that we're stimulating them and making sure that they are actually going to build those houses. And if not, then they'll have to pay penalties as well. So I think it's really an issue of making sure that we have that supply, but we also provide people with the options to have real and true affordable housing.
Thank you. And green space, at what point do we say we need to take green space for housing?
Well, hopefully not. I would rather see us build upwards than take any more green space. In our platform, we say that we actually won't pave over the green belt like the current government is doing with highways. We want to actually increase the green belt space, making sure that we're protecting our environment for our future generations. And we're also saying that we want to make sure, that we have more provincial parks. We're actually hoping to build 5 more new provincial parks in Ontario because we know how important our green space is, we know how important the environment is, we know how important the farmlands are, and we know how important the wetlands are.
And finally, what aspect of your platform would most benefit residents here in Bronte specifically and Ward 1 in general?
So actually I'm going to change the conversation a little bit and say we have so many great small businesses here in Bronte. They've been really through a hard time the last 2 years with the pandemic. A lot of the small businesses were shut down while a lot of the big box stores were able to remain open. We've been hearing it a lot about how these small businesses really need our support to make sure that they can stay open. And as you probably know, our small businesses are really the heart of our communities. So in our platform, we're saying that we will actually eliminate small business corporate income tax for the next 2 years for those businesses like here in Bronte that have been hit hardest by the pandemic. That will really, I think, allow a lot of our small businesses to make sure that they stay open and they get that help through the next 2 years. We're obviously going to let a lot of them actually help to go digital as well because of the impact that they've had over COVID. We're buying a lot of stuff on Amazon. Let's promote our small businesses. Let's make sure that they can stay open and that they thrive. And let's help them go digital as well so that can be part of then the conversation going forward.
Sure, thank you. As residents, we want a vibrant retail
Yes.
Opportunities to shop. Having said that, when we're talking about housing, the most recent example is the Villages, and the retail space on ground level still remains for lease. The retail owners that I've spoken to said they can't afford these, the lease prices for these new properties.
Right.
We have multiple new development that, where the developer is promoting ground level retail. But if the retail cost, rental, isn't affordable, we're going to have a lot of empty space. So how do we deal with that?
So again, for our platform, we look forward to working with the municipalities and the community groups to make sure that people can actually open their small businesses, that they don't have, these really high costs in terms of lease, especially here, in Bronte, and downtown Oakville has the same issue as well. We also want to stir innovation and, entrepreneurship in Ontario, and we look forward to helping people to be able to open their own small businesses, to be able to have our communities thrive, and make sure that we have really great walkable cities as well, where people can live, right here in Bronte, walk down to their local shops, walk down to their local restaurants and businesses, and create really great community hubs that we want to see for the future.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And we wish you well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.